David keeps an eye on the bank of video monitors set into the wall above the desk in the L3 guard station, muffling a yawn into his hand. This time of the morning, he rarely sees anybody other than the commander, a few people starting their days in decontamination, and whoever is due in at 0800 hours to relieve him. Today, that'll be Lizette and Roman. He pauses and studies the feeding and medication room's monitor as Captain Walcott exits Commander Maldonado's office and walks quickly out the door into the first hall that will lead her out of L3. He's wondered since she came in earlier what brings her here this early in the morning, but he knows better than to ask her. One of his duties is to escort everyone entering or exiting L3 for the duration of their walk down the corridors, but the captain immediately dismissed him from accompanying her earlier. He's anticipating that she'll do that again on her way out. But even as he's expecting this, it's far better to have her dismiss him than it is to have her wonder why he never showed up. If her walking pace remains consistent, he expects her to reach the passageway near him in roughly 3 minutes. While he could easily watch her progress via the screen, the challenge of guessing how quickly she'll reach him is working as a way to keep alert. Stretching out his arms, David lifts his assault rifle from its resting place against the wall and thoroughly checks it before he starts to head out. A red light activates above the door beside him, briefly immersing the small room in red, indicating that someone is present in the corridor near him right now. He blinks in surprise, not expecting the captain to have moved this fast. Looking at the passageway monitor, he observes her reaching the end of the second corridor and opening the door into the third one, which means the captain didn't trip that sensor. He looks uneasily at the door before Lizette's voice pops in on the comm. "Disregard red, I'm on it." "Affirmative," David answers her, resting his assault rifle against the wall and returning his attention to the monitors while smirking. Lizette sneaks up on him sometimes when she relieves him, and then gives him shit for letting it happen. This usually happens when she's in a good mood. In another minute, the office door slides open and Lizette walks in, giving David an amused look. "Sleeping on the job again?" She rests her assault rifle against the wall beside her, then reaches down and unsheaths her boot knife, pulling an envelope out of her pocket and slitting it open. Returning the knife to her boot, Lizette leans back into the corner across from his chair and unfolds the letter. "Of course," David quips. "Spending 12 hours a day with my good buddies in containment has me all carefree and looking for a good nap. I find our profound conversation so satisfying, yet tiring." He pauses for a moment as Lizette remains focused on the letter. "That from Rowena?" "Yep," Lizette answers, retrieving a photograph from within the letter and smiling as she examines it. David gets up and joins her, peering over her shoulder. Lizette eyes him for a moment and then hands him the picture and waves him away as she begins reading the handwritten pages. Raising an eyebrow in exaggerated irritation at her, David returns to his chair and studies the photo. In it, a woman with long, wavy black hair and a charming smile has her arms around a massive dog with pointed ears, thoroughly expressive eyes, and a noble demeanor. They are seated together on a stone bench in a formal garden, and other than hints of silver on his muzzle and dark brown markings on both his face and chest, the dog's coat is as dark as a starless night back home on Hygeia's moon, Salacia. David recognizes the formal garden as one he's visited before on Hygeia. "I'm guessing she's Rowena," he begins, and while he could tell Lizette that her wife's good-looking, she already knows that, and he also just watched her slice an envelope open, so he'll talk about their dog instead. This is by no means a hardship. "Who's this magnificent beast with her?" Remaining focused on the letter, Lizette replies sardonically, "Good guess." Turning to the next page, she continues speaking as she reads. "His name is Orpheus. He's been in my life since he was 4 months old, and he's the finest dog I've ever met." "What kind of dog is he, and why is he the best?" David leans in and offers the photo back to Lizette. She takes it and folds the letter around it, returning it to her pocket. He's a purebred Beauceron, and Lizette stops, giving her watch a troubled look. Did Roman contact you or anyone else this morning? Not that I know of. David glances at the clock on the wall above Lizette and furrows his brows. It's 0804, and Roman's never been late before. He always joins me in the L3 mess when we're on duty together. Lizette looks concerned. 10 minutes before we're due in is when he shows up, like clockwork. No sign of him this morning. The red light activates above the door again, and Lizette grabs her assault rifle. She gives David a look, but this time there's no humor in her expression or voice. Disregard red again. I'm on it. She exits the room, and the office lights go from red to their usual stark fluorescent. Within a few minutes, the office door slides open again. Roman has his arm around her shoulders, and when he looks at David, his face is haggard and his eyes are bloodshot. Vacate the chair, Lizette demands, and David jumps up. Roman slumps into it and rests his face against the desk, covering his head with both hands. Lizette looks at him, and the expression on her face is telling David that she knows much more about what's happening right now than he does. Jerry and Winona are here. I'll get you something for the headache. She offers quietly to Roman's slumped shoulders, and then she's gone. While the office is cramped with all three of them in it, David both wants her to return quickly and needs to know what's going on. Roman? At first he doesn't move, and after a few seconds and a quiet groan, Roman slides one of his hands to the top of the desk. Opening an eye and wincing visibly, he then moves his hand back into place, covering his head. When he speaks, the words crawl out and stumble together, trying to emerge while simultaneously trying not to. Light hurts. Everything hurts. But duty day, gotta. David looks down at his gun against the wall and leans over Roman, lifting it up and returning to the wall. Roman doesn't move again, and David watches over him. Lizette returns with a bottle of water and a few pills, gently resting her hand on Roman's shoulder. Painkillers and water. These should take effect in roughly 5 to 10 mics. Stay here until they do, then go see Jerry or Winona. I'll cover you. She hands Roman the pills, and he carefully moves just enough to gulp them down, taking a swig of water before he resumes his huddled posture on the desk and utters a faint, "Thanks." Her answering expression is tormented for a split second before Lizette replies quietly, "Don't thank me." David grabs her arm. "Outside, now." Lizette closes her eyes for a few seconds, then nods agreement and exits the guard station with him, both of them leaving their assault rifles behind with Roman. They halt a few steps outside the door, Lizette staring further down the passage toward decontamination shower rooms for a minute, and David's not having it. Why does Roman have a Rathian headache that bad? Wincing, Lizette takes in a deep breath and continues avoiding eye contact. We had an incident on 10 November. Look at me and detail this incident, David retorts, crossing his arms. And while you're at it, explain why I'm just now hearing about it. With a sigh, Lizette looks at him, and her expression is a mix of defiance, regret, and uneasiness. I was assigned a new roommate last week, Ensign Sarah Delmore. She goes by Sadie. She works on the bridge doing navigation. I had to hide all of my personal shit in my locker. She's been fine, really quiet. But I'm not taking my stuff out yet until I know I can. Arching a brow, David studies her. Unless Sadie is a surprise Rathian, how is this relevant to what I asked you? Lizette glares at him, clearly frustrated. I'm getting there. Get there faster, David demands. That's an order. Lizette blinks in surprise, and when she speaks again, her voice has an undercurrent of apprehension. Last week, I was preoccupied with the Sadie situation. On 10 November, Roman accompanied me into the S6 cell. We needed to dart the Ordos Rathian, the healthy one, so we could transport him with the Thebes Rathian, the dying one, for a feeding. Per Commander Maldonado's order, we don't dart Thebes anymore because he's too weak. Roman asked me if he could use the dart gun, and I was there to supervise him, so I agreed and handed him the gun. And David has never pulled rank on Lizette before, and he's never needed to. But if this situation shapes up to be what he thinks it will be, then his next conversation will be with Commander Maldonado. He's not looking forward to what he'll have to discuss with her. Sucking in a deep breath, Lizette continues. All of her defiance is gone. Now her eyes are haunted and her tone is rueful. Roman missed. It wasn't his fault. He was so careful lining up the shot. Ordos was very close to Thebes, as he usually is. When Roman took the shot, Ordos moved. Roman hit Thebes. Shit. David closes his eyes for a moment, bracing himself because Commander Maldonado is his next conversation. He focuses again on Lizette, uncrossing his arms. Ordos is very protective of Thebes. The worse that Thebes gets, the harder it is to deal with Ordos. Closing her eyes, Lizette nods briefly to what David said and then continues. I took over, darted Ordos, and called in Commander Maldonado. We transported both of them out. The sedatives ran their course and Thebes recovered. I told Commander Maldonado that what happened was my responsibility, and she verbally reprimanded me for it. She opens her eyes and looks at David. When she reprimanded you, did you sign anything? David questions, and she shakes her head. No. Commander Maldonado stated this was informal. Lizette breathes out slowly. But since my actions had led to Roman violating her direct order, that if any further incidents occurred, I would receive a formal reprimand. After an uneasy pause, Lizette continues. This happened near the end of our day. Roman was quiet. Normally he talks your ear off, but not after that. He seemed otherwise fine when he left L3, and he's been off duty for the past 2 days. I guarantee he's had this headache since Ordos woke up, and it kept getting worse. That's how these headaches work. We've both had easier versions than this, and unlike him, we know that the Rathians cause them. Now Ordos is going to be targeting both of you. David further steels himself, because talk is easy and he needs to deal with this. Which means I need to get involved in this, and I should have been right away when this incident happened. Neither of you will ever enter the S6 cell again for any reason. Call me in, I don't care what time it is. Commander Maldonado's solution for L3 guards is backfiring, and she needs to hear that from me, right now. Biting her lip hard, Lizette looks back at the decontamination showers again, and David shakes his head. She looks miserable, and he's not having that either. Much as I enjoy blaming you for shit, this one isn't yours. It's mine. It's been waiting to happen since we started putting Rathians into those cells, Lizette, and now it has. She makes eye contact again, and David's weary with making this part of L3 work. He knows she is, too. If it wasn't you and Roman, it would have been me and one of the other guards we have to supervise that have no idea who they're patrolling. We've hated not being able to brief them on what to watch out for or what can happen. It's time for me to tell Commander Maldonado that has to change. Watch over Roman. David steps back into the office and retrieves his assault rifle. Lizette comes in and looks at Roman, her expression disheartened. Roman moves slightly in his chair, remaining shrouded within his arms. David pats Lizette's shoulder briefly, then steps around her as he leaves, heading down the passageway to find Commander Maldonado.